On my 55th birthday, my wife and kids handed me divorce papers and an eviction notice in front of half the neighborhood. "We're selling the house and the company," my son said. "You get nothing." "Happy birthday, loser," my daughter added. They laughed. I pulled a Bic from my pocket, signed every page, and walked out. No scene, no begging. Just a man who'd finally accepted the math. They wanted me gone. At the Moonlight Motel, peeling wallpaper, groaning AC, I scrolled through 27 years of photos that suddenly looked like evidence. Clara at our wedding, Lucas toddling, Maya gap-toothed at Christmas. I felt nothing, and then everything. By dawn, I had a plan. I rented a storage unit and tucked away the only inheritance I'd ever loved, my grandfather's planes, chisels, and his oak bench. At the bank, I withdrew the cash I'd quietly squirreled away for 15 years. 40 grand. Call it paranoia, call it wisdom, best decision I ever made. I paid cash for a used Silverado, signed as John Harrison, and drove west with no credit cards, no GPS, and no forwarding address. 2 days and 6 cups of gas station coffee later, I sat in a Colorado bar next to a woman editing photos on a scarred laptop. Sophie, travel photographer, laughed like she'd earned it. She showed me a shot of a mountain town called Riverbend. Small, alive. "People mind their business, but help when you need it," she said. "Good place to start over." She was right. I rented a cabin from a widow who asked 3 questions. First month's rent, any pets, and was I running from the law? I said yes, no, and not exactly. The garage became a workshop. I hung a pine sign, Harrison Woodworks. I fixed wobbly tables, straightened cabinet doors, and mended heirloom rockers until the town's gossip network decided I was useful. Meanwhile, back home, the narrative was that I'd cracked. Clara told anyone who'd listen that turning 55 broke me. Friends left voicemails that started soft and turned sharp when I didn't call back. My kids? Silence. That told me everything. Month 3, a tall man in a perfect suit walked into my shop. Silver hair, old money posture. "Victor Blackwood," he said, brushing a hand over a finished coffee table. "I'm building a luxury resort in Aspen. 15 suites, no showroom furniture. Interested?" He quoted a number that made my knees go soft. 50% up front, a materials budget that let me buy wood I'd only dreamed about, and 3 months of work that would put me back on a map I chose, not the one they chose for me. I signed. Victor's friends came through, too. Men and women who owned things. Companies, planes, occasionally towns. While I cut joinery, they talked business. That's how I met Gregory Hayes, a venture capitalist who collected distressed companies like Rare Stamps. He asked about a furniture manufacturer back east, Briner Furniture. I kept my face blank. That night, I called Daniel, my oldest friend. He didn't bother with hello. "Harry, Clara says you broke, but she brought in a Chicago hotshot, Adrian Cole, to modernize the company. Your name's off the letterhead, and he's living in your house." The sting was familiar. So was the clarity that followed. I dug into Cole. On paper, polished. In truth, a professional ruin. 2 ex-wives drained, a trail of shuttered businesses, gambling debt thick as phone books. A con who specialized in lonely women with assets and men he thought were in the way. I hired Miller, an ex-military investigator who speaks in completed tasks. 3 days later, he slid me a folder, photos of Cole in hotels with a 20-something trust fund brunette, transfers from Clara's accounts, and a resume written entirely in lies. I mailed neat, anonymous packages to Clara, Lucas, and Maya, photos, bank statements, a tidy timeline of scams, then went back to planing the arm of a walnut chair. The explosion landed on schedule. Daniel reported the fallout. Clara white as chalk. Lucas blustering about fabrication and lawsuits. Maya asking hard questions. Good. The first crack. Meanwhile, Gregory's firm quietly bought up the company's overdue supplier invoices and a chunk of its bank debt.
No headlines, just leverage. Then OSHA walked in, anonymous tip, and found a blocked emergency exit, Lucas's golf clubs, expired fire extinguishers, and a finishing room that could have gassed a moose. 47 grand in fines and a production shutdown. Competence had left the building. I called my daughter from a burner. "Dad," she whispered. "We didn't know." "You have one chance," I said. "Pick a side before this collapses." Adrian runs. Your mother holds the bag. Lucas saves himself. 2 weeks later, an encrypted email arrived. Internal memos, expense reports, audio clips of Adrian coaching Clara on moving assets. My daughter had decided to be my daughter again. Gregory invited Clara to his office. She arrived in her power suit with a 47-page deck about temporary headwinds. He listened, asked civilized questions, and offered to buy the company for 30 cents on the dollar while assuming its debts. She asked for time. He gave her 72 hours, knowing time was the one thing she didn't have. While the clock ticked, I built. Aspen pieces came alive. Brazilian rosewood that sang when you tapped it. Figured maple that curled like smoke. I took on apprentices. Tully from Denver, Amara from foster care, 3 local kids hungry for craft. Every dovetail they cut stitched me back together. Cole tried one last hustle, sell Briner's assets to his associates, then vanish. Miller's people had been watching. When Adrian headed for the airport with a ticket to Montreal under an alias, they introduced him to a pair of handcuffs and a stack of warrants. He slipped bail within a month. Men like him always escalate. First, he broke into Clara's condo, left with jewelry and cash, and painted a message on her mirror. "Your husband ruined me. Now he'll pay." An hour later, Maya called, sobbing, her apartment trashed. "Ask your father what happens to traitors," scrawled on her mirror. I stopped feeling sorry for anyone. Miller moved them to a lakeside safe house that looked like a TV set and functioned like a bunker. "Stay put," I told them. "File police reports. Paper trails matter." Miller found Adrian's cabin 40 miles out, BMW in the weeds, desperation in the air. I went first. He opened the door holding a shaking gun and a face 10 years older than it was last month. "You had options," I said, stepping inside. "Tell the truth and do soft time, or run. You chose a third door, threaten my family." Miller's team flowed in at dusk, quiet and competent. Zip ties, a sedative, and then a ride to a federal facility where the uniforms are gray and the menus don't have wine pairings. I watched the van go and felt something I hadn't in a year, tired in a good way. 72 hours later, Clara signed Gregory's papers. Dad assumed. Wreckage contained. She didn't get destroyed. She got saved from her own choices. Lucas kept his bar card but lost his inheritance. Maya rented a tiny Denver apartment and designed pieces under the Legacy Woodworks name we'd quietly registered. 14 months and change after my exile, I walked into the boardroom I'd built with my own hands. Same mahogany table, same parking lot view, new ownership ledger. Gregory handled the preamble. "Given recent events, the board has voted for a leadership change, effective immediately." "Who's the new CEO?" Clara asked. Gregory smiled. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back the company's founder, Harrison Briner." Lucas leapt up, sputtering about signatures and standing. I laid out purchase agreements, debt assignments, and stock transfers like a blackjack dealer laying down 21. "While you were modernizing, I was buying. Competence beats chaos." Clara's voice was small. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since you handed me those papers and laughed," I said. "I don't vanish. I build." The plan was simple. Replace the entire management tier. Restore quality. Make only what deserved our name. And move the main shop under a new umbrella, Legacy Woodworks, to Colorado, where the air is honest and the wood is better. Generous relocation for those who came. Fair severance for those who didn't. We'd honor clean contracts and fight the dirty ones. "Why didn't you ruin us?" Clara asked, finally meeting my eyes. "You could have. Because building is harder than destroying," I said. "And because I'm not you." The meeting ended with signatures that felt like closing a book. Not revenge. Rescue. From them for me. Riverbend flourished. 3 workshops, a small village of makers. We paid living wages, covered health care, and taught craft like it was math and music combined. Tully's joints got so clean I could trust him on solo commissions. Give Amara a cherry and a chisel and she made it look like silk. Maya moved to town and built a design studio where tradition and modern lines shook hands. Victor's Resort opened with my pieces in every suite. Word traveled. Clients flew in to put their hands on the work. A Swiss collector commissioned a fairy tale bedroom set and wired the kind of number that funds expansions and Christmas bonuses. He flew us out to install it. Maya stood in the carved forest of the headboard and whispered, "We're good at this." I nodded. "We are." Back east, the fallout settled. Lucas slid sideways into Florida real estate, still sure the world owed him interest. Clara surprised everyone by teaching art history at a small Arizona college, craftsman movement, authenticity over gloss. She'd learned, finally, the costly difference. Adrian learned other lessons in federal prison. I felt no triumph, just balance. Sophie kept returning to Riverbend between assignments, her camera catching sawdust halos, lamplight on hand-cut dovetails, the soft concentration on an apprentice's face. Somewhere between her book about American craftspeople and 100 quiet dinners on my porch. Professional turned personal. "You know what I love about this place?" she asked one evening as mountains went purple. "Everyone's building, furniture, lives, a future." She was right. You could feel it in the grain of the town. One September morning, my lawyer called. "Final paperwork on the Millbrook property." Clara signed. "You're free of all remaining entanglements." The ledger closed with a click that sounded like peace. I walked the yard, coffee in hand, past the main shop alive with the thrum of planers and conversation, past Maya's studio where Amara set a leaf vein with a carver's knife so delicate I held my breath, into my own quiet room where a jewelry box of ebony and silver waited for the next pass of the plane. The shavings curled like black ribbon. If you tapped that wood, it sang back. At lunch, Maya waved a check like a magic trick, the final Swiss payment, and laid photos on my bench. Our work looked like it had grown out of the room. Time itself might have built it. She grinned. A little girl and a master designer in the same face. "We did this, Dad." That night, Daniel called to gossip and congratulate. "Forbes says you're reviving American craftsmanship," he joked. "I've got 43 people doing that," I said, sitting in the cherry chair I'd saved for myself. "We caught up on everyone." He said Lucas still hadn't apologized for anything, only resented consequences. Sounds right. On the porch, Sophie and I watched the last light fall behind the ridge. She squeezed my hand. "If they ask for forgiveness, would you give it?" "Maya earned it," I said. "Clara's working at it." "Lucas, some wounds don't heal. They just stop bleeding." I looked out at everything I hadn't lost, hadn't sold, hadn't burned. The real revenge wasn't a ruin. It was a workshop full of light and laughter and wood that will outlast us all. It was waking up without dread, making something worthy with people who gave a damn, and going to bed tired and clean. On my 55th birthday, they tried to erase me. Turns out they freed me. Sometimes the long game isn't about getting even. It's about getting better and building something so true that what they took no longer matters.